Hi, Amy Shaw here. It is September 1st, 2016, and what I want to talk about today is the topic of whether Jesus Christ was a shaman. The reason this is of interest to me is because over the years, I've heard people say, Jesus was the Buddha, Jesus was a shaman, Jesus was an ascended master, all sorts of things that you hear, right? You could say he was the Reiki master. You could say that he was, the ultimate alchemist, the ultimate Aikido master. I mean, all of these things, right? We could say about Jesus because he was just that amazing. But since shamanism is sort of my world and my language these days, last week someone actually said to me that Jesus was a shaman, and the way it was said to me was not actually in a positive. We weren't having a very positive and encouraging discourse. It was actually quite negative. But that saying that and hearing that in that context, and with my understanding that I have now, it really caused me to sort of step back and say, well, was that true? Was Jesus really a shaman? So that's the issue I want to explore today. Now, first of all, whenever we talk about Jesus, the most important source of information that we have is the Bible. Outside of the Bible, there's not a whole lot of information, some, but not a whole lot. So the most important thing to me is to go to the Bible to determine what Jesus said about himself. Now, an interesting thing, and not the point of this video, but just as I was contemplating this, I also had to step back and ask, well, was Jesus even God? Because I know the Bible really well, and actually to step back and think about that, I could not really recall anything in the Bible where Jesus actually said of himself that he was God, right? He called himself the Son of God. He called himself the Son of Man. He definitely said that he was sent by God. He definitely had authority that he claimed was granted to him by God. But consistently, he referred to God as his Father. And then when he would pray, like in the Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed, right, that his will, that not his will be done, but his Father's will in heaven. So Jesus himself actually did make some critical distinctions between himself as the Son of Man, or the Son of God, and God himself. But that's beside the point. The important point of that, though, is that before we just say, oh, yes, Jesus was a shaman, we have to ask, well, who did Jesus say he was? Who did he claim to be? Well, obviously, he never claimed to be a shaman. He never said, I am a shaman. He never said, I am the Buddha. He never said, I am an ascended master. He never said any of those things. Basically, he said, I'm the Son of God, or the Son of Man. Now, the interesting thing that I want to point out about Jesus and who he actually said he was is a scripture that I have found myself talking about a lot in my videos lately in a different context. How I've been talking about it is the context of really Peter and how transitory our spiritual nature is, that we can go from 1 minute having this divine knowledge and then the next minute sort of being an operant of the Antichrist, right? But going back to that same scripture, I want to point some things out about Jesus and who he said that he was. So hang on, I'm going to pull out my Bible. Okay, so the Bible that I'm going to read out of today is actually this Gideon's Bible. It's the little, pocket New Testament, Psalms and Proverbs. My son spent 6 years in the Army as a military police, and then another 3 in active reserve as a chaplain's assistant. So I have some of these nifty little hand pocket Gideon Bibles that are army green camouflage. So I'm going to be reading out of that today just because it's easy and right here. Okay, and the scripture that I'm reading from today is actually Matthew chapter 16. When Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, they being his disciples. So they said, Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, But who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered and said, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered and said to him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. So the point that I want to make about this is a couple of things. First of all, it's interesting that Jesus asked, who do people say that I am? Who are people saying that I am? Because I think that Jesus fundamentally understood that it didn't really matter who he said that he was. What mattered to people in their own reality is who they say that he is, as it is so today. Who I am doesn't matter to you. What really matters to you, what creates your reality, is who you say that I am. So in that way, I think that this passage in Scripture really reflects that understanding that of Jesus, that what was important was not so much what he said or who he said he was, but what other people were saying about him and who they were saying that he is. The second point that I think is crucial really to understanding is that, Peter pipes up and he says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. So in other words, Peter was seeing the divinity of Jesus, and Jesus was blessing him, saying, yes, you've been given this knowledge from God himself. So basically, that is still how it is today. I mean, who people say that you are is more important to them in their worldview and their reality than who you say that you are. And so the interesting question is then at that point, does who they believe you are actually alter who you are? I mean, the thing of it is, right, and this is a whole different topic. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but we are the ones that spend the most time with ourselves, right? We know ourselves intimately because we live within ourselves, in our own thoughts, our own minds, 24/7. I mean, even when we dream, we take ourselves with us and meet other parallel selves. So nobody truly can know us better than we know our own selves. So when somebody's coming and saying, well, you're a this or you're a that, and that's not part of your reality of what you understand about yourself, does them saying this about you really alter your reality in some way, or fundamentally make you different in your essence than what you really are? Well, that's an interesting question. I don't really know. But to go back to the original question of is Jesus a shaman? I think that we have to look at, number one, who he said he was. And he never claimed to be a shaman. He never claimed to be anything other than the Son of Man and the Son of God. And number two, then we look at what Jesus did, what his behaviors were, and what did he do? Well, he healed people, and yes, shamans do that. He cast out demons. Yes, shamans do that. What else? I mean, did he visit non-ordinary reality? Well, we can't know for sure, but he did seem like he had a very keen spiritual connection that other people around him didn't have. So we could say yes, perhaps on that as well. Some ancient texts outside of the Bible claim that Jesus was a shapeshifter. If that's the case, then possibly we could say yes, that lends itself to shamanism as well. But in terms of shamanism itself, I want to read you something really quick. Okay, so what I'm going to read to you actually comes from this book, Cave and Cosmos, Shamanic Encounters with Another Reality, by author Michael Harner. You can see that there. Okay. Now, Michael Harner was an anthropologist for many, many years. He traveled all over the world and studied many, many indigenous tribes. And what he did is he brought back what he calls core shamanism or universal shamanism. He saw certain features of every shamanic culture that were universal, and he brought those back to the West and actually founded a school, the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. Sandra Ingerman, who is pretty famous in the shamanic circle, she published a lot of books and actually started her own sort of system in school. But she was actually a teacher through the Foundation for Shamanic Studies for many, many years. So they're one of the oldest schools for shamanism in the West, and they're pretty well respected. What they teach in universal shamanism is the core basics of shamanism that sort of transcend culture. So they don't teach a lot of like specific ritual or method or technique, just the core basic method and technique. And then they leave the student to sort of discover and create the unique aspects of their shamanic experience and practice on their own. So that's a little bit about Michael Harner. Now, so in the back of this book, Michael's wife, Sandra Harner, also has a PhD, and she just wrote a little appendix to the back, and that's actually what I'm going to be reading from. It just lists the core shamanic assumptions about nature and humankind, okay? Number 1, unity. Humans are part of the totality of nature, are related to all other biological forms, and are not superior to them. 2, realities. Ordinary state of consciousness accesses ordinary reality, and shamanic state of consciousness accesses non-ordinary reality. The universe. 3 worlds: upper world, middle world, lower world. Souls. Members of all species, including humans, have souls. Helping spirits. Their existence is real, empirical fact. A large variety of types. Not all powerful outside of non-ordinary reality, but with shamanic assistance can have a significant impact in ordinary reality, as in healing matters. And journey. A shamanic voyage into non-ordinary reality, especially to the upper and lower worlds, to seek assistance for healing and divination. So these are the core shamanic assumptions about nature and humankind. In other words, this sort of cosmology of shamanism, the core of it. Now, regardless of what culture, what sort of flavor that you are coming from, these are the core sort of assumptions about shamanism. And so if we take these things as they're listed and we go down and see if any of these apply to the being of Jesus. Well, first of all, unity. That's interesting because in John 17, that was Jesus's prayer, right, to God, was that all of his people, all his believers, his tribe, those called to him, that they would all be one, united in him, and him united in the Father, in this sort of complete and total unity. So unity is an aspect of what Jesus taught, believed, what he hoped for, but I'm not really sure if he practiced that in the same shamanic principle that a shaman would practice, that humans are part of the totality of nature. In other words, a respect and reverence for all living things. And are related to all other biological forms, meaning that the unity of all on the planet, the trees, the animals, every living thing, the insects, every little thing, having unity. I'm not so sure that Jesus taught that. Now, was Jesus one with nature metaphysically? In the sense, yes, he had complete command over the natural environment, right? He walked on water, was able to still the stormy sea and whatnot. So in that aspect, I mean, we could say, yes, perhaps he did have that unity. He definitely had that metaphysical command of nature. But I think that actually lends itself to suggest that Jesus was more than a shaman, because a shaman, his goal is not to really have command over or control over, but to exist in unity with, to be in harmony with. And so that could be a slight but very, very important difference. In terms of the universe, the 3 worlds, the lower, middle, and upper, this definitely is a very distinct cosmology to shamanism that I'm quite certain was... Well, I shouldn't say I'm quite certain, because I really don't know. It's not something that I've studied from this angle and in depth to say whether, what Jesus said and believed may have been compatible with that. But after 20 years being a Christian and reading the Bible, true, from a very specific ideology and standpoint, but just off the top of my head, I would have to say I do not believe that this was part of the cosmology of what Jesus believed. Now, as far as souls, members of all species, including humans having souls, all species means animals and everything having souls. I don't think that the Bible is very clear about this, and I'm pretty sure that Jesus never really talked about this at all. I know that when he exorcised the demons in one of the stories, that they went out of the man and into a herd of pigs. But I mean, that's as close as I can think to any sort of suggestions about animals having souls. I mean, certainly if demonic spirits can go into pigs, then you would think that it's possible that they have a soul. But there's nothing that to me indicates in the Bible that Jesus directly said that or taught that. So we don't know on this one. Now, so the next one, helping spirits. The existence of helping spirits, a variety of helping spirits. Not all powerful outside of non-ordinary reality, but with shamanic assistance can have significant impact in ordinary reality, as in healing matters. Again, this goes back to the first thing that, I was suggesting about the unity and not being superior. I don't think that Jesus ever called on helping spirits, nor would he, because he sort of existed above that, right? He was above that. And so in that sense, again, I would have to point to saying, no, not only was Jesus not a shaman, he was much, much more than that. The next one, the journey, shamanic voyage into non-ordinary reality, especially the upper and the lower worlds. And that goes back to the two realities, the ordinary and non-ordinary reality. Again, the same thing, we don't know. We know that Jesus prayed. We know that he clearly had communion with higher beings, with God directly, possibly with angels. So we know that he was able to access non-ordinary reality, probably in much easier ways than most human beings can. He had a direct access. And so once again, that points me to say that Jesus was not a shaman, but he was actually more than that. Metaphysically, I think because he came from God, was created by God, and I think that he came to represent the full embodiment of God in a human form. So as the full embodiment of God in human form, then metaphysically we would have to say that Jesus was everything. He was not only the Alpha and the Omega, but he also was a shaman. He also was the Buddha. He also was the Zen master. He also was the Aikido master. He also was the Reiki master. He was all of these things combined. But he also, because he was all of that, he actually ascended and was above that, or more than that. So to really narrow it down, if we truly understand shamanism, that is putting our feet into the mud and being people of the earth, how shamanic practice has been carried out for over 14,000 years, I would have to say no, Jesus was not truly a shaman. He didn't use shamanic language. He didn't have a very clear and definite shamanic cosmology. It's interesting to consider, like, if Jesus was here in front of me today and I were to ask him, Jesus, are you a shaman? What would I say in my gut that he would tell me? I think that he would say exactly what I'm saying, well, who do you say I am? And that he's so much more than that as well. So really, fundamentally for me, to answer that question in a yes or no kind of a way, I would say no. Jesus was not a shaman, but he was much more than that. So I don't know if that was clear. It was an important question for me to ask and to come to understand for myself, and to understand to the person who made that statement where they are coming from, and sort of what their understanding or misunderstanding might be about not only the personhood of Christ and who Christ truly is, but also understanding shamanism and what shamans truly are. I think a lot of people have this misperception that shamans are, somehow these, I don't know, beings that walk on water, and that's not the case. Historically, for thousands and thousands of years, the shamans were basically just like the priests and the counselors and the doctors, of the tribe. They were the people that kept the tribe and the individuals in the tribe sort of healthy and going in the right direction. That's all. They didn't do anything that they would consider spectacular. It wasn't a role that was put above any other role. In shamanic society and indigenous tribal culture, everybody had a role and everybody was equally valuable. There wasn't any one that was above any other in that sense. And so historically, shamans haven't been seen as being, anything special. And so in that sense, again, going back to the original question of, was Jesus a shaman? Again, I would have to say, no, he was not. He was not a shaman. He was much, much more than that. So anyway, I hope that cleared it up or gave you something to chew on. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'm going to do a video tomorrow. I think probably I have chemotherapy tomorrow. So I was thinking it'd be kind of cool to actually do a video. I haven't done that in probably 8 or 9 years. Do a chemotherapy video. I'm going to be talking again about the Mandela effect. So hopefully it'll be a pretty quick one. But yeah, stay tuned. Check back again tomorrow. I love you guys all so much. Have a great day.